Using the Animus 2.0, Desmond Miles attempted to relive one of the later memories of his ancestor, Ezio Auditore, hoping that it would reveal the location of his supernatural Apple of Eden artefact, which could allow them to prevent the foretold world-ending disaster in the present day. However, instead of entering the memory set in 1506, he was forced into a different memory, occurring during a battle in Viana. From there, as Ezio looked upon the besieged Viana Castle, he recalled the similar events of the Siege of Monteriggioni, subsequently forcing Desmond back further into a memory from 1499. Right after the previous game, Assassin's Creed 2, as Ezio left the vault beneath the Vatican after listening to Minerva's message, he discovered that Rodrigo Borgia was gone. Noticing too that the staff had been left behind, he attempted to extract it from where it had been impaled into the floor. However, it descended and was sealed away. Mario Auditore then called down to him from the entrance, and he and Ezio fought their way out of the Vatican. Ezio, unable to decide whether or not to cast the apple into the Tiber River, gave it to Mario for safekeeping. The two then rode back to Monteriggioni on horseback. However, Ezio soon learned that the Templar threat had diminished little when Cesare Borgia, son of Rodrigo Borgia, laid siege to Monteriggioni. Cesare's army of soldiers, towers and cannons attacked in full force, destroying much of the city and villa. The attack ended with Monteriggioni in ruins, Ezio wounded and Mario killed by Cesare himself. Though Ezio attempted to follow his uncle's murderer on horseback, he passed out on the road to Rome from his injuries. At that point, Desmond woke from the Animus, stationed in the back of the assassin's van, them having arrived at the Villa Auditore in modern-day Monteriggioni, their last safe house in Italy. Lucy Stillman explained that they need to recover Ezio's Apple of Eden, as she suspected that Minerva had altered it somehow when she had touched it in the vault. Desmond, Lucy, Sean and Rebecca then headed for the villa, seeking the safety of the underground sanctuary, which would keep them hidden from Abstergo's cell towers. However, as the door was locked, Desmond and Lucy left to discover another way in. After making their way through the secret passage that Ezio and the citizens had used to flee the Borgia attack, they opened the way for Sean and Rebecca. Inside the sanctuary, Desmond saw an aged Ezio due to the bleeding effect and deduced that he must have returned to the villa many years after the attack, though for an unknown purpose. He also found a symbol that Ezio had drawn on the wall and, using eagle vision, saw a series of numbers hidden underneath. The four of them then set up the Animus 2.0, and Desmond returned to Ezio's memories, with Lucy believing that improving his synchronization with Ezio would allow Desmond to access the memory revealing the location of the apple. Ezio regained consciousness in a small house in Rome, where the woman who had been tending to him told him that a man had brought him there, and had supplied him with new armor and clothing. After leaving the house and receiving medicine from a doctor, Ezio left to meet Machiavelli. Through Machiavelli, he discovered that Rome was in despair, and that the citizens were being oppressed by the Borgia. Basing himself on the Tiber Island in the centre of the city, Ezio began his mission to rid the city of the influence of Cesare and his generals. To do so, Ezio re-established relationships between his Assassin's Guild and the other guilds in the city, namely that of the courtesans, led by Madonna Solari and later Claudio Auditore, the thieves, led by La Volpe, and the mercenaries, led by Bartolomeo del Viano. Ezio then began to rebuild the Brotherhood by recruiting apprentices, who were made up of both distressed citizens who wished to liberate their city and young novice assassins. After the recruits had completed their training, he placed them in teams and sent them on missions across Europe. Ezio then began to break down the Borgia influence in Rome by destroying several Borgia towers and their captains. He also sabotaged Cesare's forces by striking at their arsenal, their military funding, and their support from the French forces. To do so, he destroyed the war machines of Leonardo da Vinci and assassinated two of Cesare's key generals, his banker, Juan Borgia, and the French general, Octavien de Valois. Afterwards, he was informed that Pietro Rossi, an actor and Lucretia Borgia's plaything, possessed a key to the Castle St. Angelo. Knowing that he would need it in order to assassinate Cesare and Rodrigo successfully, Ezio tailed after Micheletto Corella, Cesare's personal assassin, who had been sent to kill Pietro. After Ezio had rescued him, both from being stabbed with the spear during his play and from the elements of poison, Pietro handed the assassin the key to the Castello. Upon completion of these tasks, Ezio inducted Claudia into the Assassin Order, and was elected by Machiavelli to be the new mentor of the Italian assassins. Soon afterwards, Ezio infiltrated the castle, where he witnessed the murder of Rodrigo by his son, Cesare. Cesare forced the location of the Apple of Eden from Lucretia, and hurried to retrieve it from Basilica di San Pietro. However, Ezio successfully reached the apple before Cesare, and subsequently used it to demilitarize the remnants of Cesare's army. In one last battle, Ezio and his fellow assassins fought Cesare and his surviving men at the gates of Rome. Cesare was arrested by Fabio Orsini by the order of the new pope, though not before commenting that he would not be in chains for long, and that he would never be killed by any man. Afterwards, Ezio brought up Cesare's remarks with Leonardo since he was worried by them. Leonardo suggested utilizing the apple to see if what Cesare had stated was accurate. After some hesitation, Ezio decided to follow his advice and found that Cesare would really be released from prison. Ezio declared that he needed to leave at once, reassuring Leonardo's concerns for the assassin guild he was leaving behind by saying, "I built this brotherhood to last, with or without me." In 1507, Ezio finally tracked Cesare down at the Siege of Viana, Spain. Ezio fought through the infantry and finally managed to corner Cesare on the castle wall. There, in a climactic battle, Ezio managed to destroy Cesare's armour and ultimately defeat him. Though Cesare insisted he would not die in the hands of man, Ezio then left him to the hands of fate and threw him from the battlements to his death. Afterwards, Ezio took the Apple of Eden into a vault under the Santa Maria Araccioli, within the Temple of Juno. Desmond emerged from the Animus shortly after reliving this memory, listening to his teammates deducing a way to get into the vault. Just as Rebecca mentioned that they needed a spoken password to enter it, a blackout occurred, cutting them off from using the Animus to find it. However, Desmond realised that the symbol he had seen on the door of the vault was the same one he had seen drawn on the villa wall. Sean discovered that the sequence of numbers hidden behind the symbol referred to the 72 names of God, setting the password to be 72. The assassins then drove to the Colosseum in Rome, and Desmond separated from the others to find a way into the vault. As he travelled the underground passageway, he encountered another of those who came before from the ancient civilization, Juno, who spoke at length of the downfall of humankind. Arriving inside the Santa Maria Araccioli, Desmond unlocked the door for his teammates and, shortly afterwards, witnessed a memory of Ezio free-running through the church. He followed him and activated a system of bars and levers, finally causing a small pedestal to emerge from the floor. Placing his hand on it, Desmond activated the floor, lowering the four of them down into the door of the vault. Desmond spoke the password and the door opened to reveal a large empty chamber with a tall platform raised in the middle, upon which the apple awaited. Desmond activated the staircase up to it by jumping across a series of pillars, while Juno's voice echoed through the cavern as she spoke cryptically of humans, the pieces of Eden, and a sixth sense. However, Desmond was apparently the only one who could hear her. Once the assassins had access to the platform, Desmond touched the apple and a series of holographic symbols appeared. Sean mentioned that two of the most distinct ones, the Parisian cap and the Masonic eye, only came together in one place. However, when Desmond picked up the apple, time seemed to stop and he found himself controlled by Juno. Though he struggled, she forced him to draw his hidden blade and stab Lucy in the abdomen. The two then fell to the ground unconscious, with blood pooling from Lucy. Later, William Miles and Harlan T. Cunningham could be heard speaking, saying that Desmond had gone into shock. William ordered Harlan to put Desmond back into the Animus, despite Harlan's protests on how badly the Animus had affected Desmond already. Desmond had entered a coma, though William claimed that Desmond would live through it. Thank you for watching that, everybody. If you liked this video and you want to know more Assassin's Creed lore and backstory and recaps and everything, then subscribe to Jam Punch, because I'm going to be releasing a brand new Assassin's Creed video every single week. My name is George, this is Jam Punch, and I will see you next time.